have you ever lost a valuable item? And if you have, can you share your feelings and emotions throughout that whole situation?
Yes. One time I was out camping and it got really wild and I ended up losing my keys. And I was freaking out about it because I had driven there and I had driven other people there. So when the next morning came, when I figured I didn't have my keys, none of us could get home. And it was a Sunday and we all had stuff to do. So my feelings were panicked and at a loss because keys usually don't make any noise, or there's no way to find them unless you like literally can see them. And because it's in the woods, it's really hard to see them under all the leaves, and you have no idea where they would be. So yeah, that was terrible. But
Okay. So after hearing this and towards it all.
I think it's a really good idea. There's so many things that people like need to have on their person at all times now, because like if you need to be driving somewhere, obviously you're gonna have your keys, but you also need your wallet with you. And if you're going to a place you've never been before, you're gonna need your phone with you. Um, and like you use your phone for everything from like schoolwork to communication. It sometimes has your bank information on there, and then with your wallet, there's so many things that you have to like pay for. Like if someone has to do like pay for tolls if they're traveling, or get gas if they have a long road trip. All those things are like you can't like survive in the modern world without them. So I think an invention like this would be super helpful, and it would have a really wide market pool because everyone has a wallet or a phone or keys or a combination of the three, and they would need that. And I can also see how companies with more expensive or valuable equipment would use this to keep track of all of their things, especially if there's a tendency for either employees or customers to walk out with them. It would be a good anti-theft device, or if someone just loses it, it's not the end of the world because they'll have one of these things to track it with. Um, I think the best way to like solve the problem is prevention, which is just come up with ways to prevent you from losing things in the first place rather than trying to find them after they get lost. So things like having whatever your valuables are be brightly colored, or have them attached to you mechanically in some way, like with a clip or with I don't know, Velcro or something. Uh, but beyond that, there's the like GPS is probably the only surefire way that you're gonna be able to find something. Because if you just do like have an audio signal, that could be muffled by any number of things. A visual signal is the same way. If it's like a light that blinks on and off, that would only really work at night, and if it's not obscured by something, um, I guess you could do something like Bluetooth or infrared signals, but those can also get obscured by things. I think GPS is a very accurate and reliable way to do it. Um, I think what I do, which is I guess really simple and not all that reliable, is just I've trained myself to always check for all of my belongings every, you know, couple like depending on where I am. If I'm like walking around town or if I'm traveling, I'll be checking like every 5 minutes to see if I have all my things with me. And when I'm home, I have a designated place to put my phone and my wallet and my keys whenever I'm not using them or they're not in my pocket. But I think like I have kind of like a muscle memory in like on my legs. Like I can feel whether or not I have my phone and all my stuff with me. And if I don't have them, or if I'm just keeping them in my backpack, I feel like I'm missing something. So I usually just rely on that. But I also have find your iPhone on my phone, so if I like lose it big time in like a city or something, I'll be able to find it.
Okay. So if it was made public, what features would you personally like to see in it?
Um, the small size is definitely a must, just because you have to, be able to fit in things, and you don't want it to be cumbersome. Just because like people have a lot of stuff in their wallets, generally, like lots of cards and identification. Another big thing would be battery life if it ran on electricity. Um, if you had to, stop and charge it every night, that would get really tiresome for people. and the more you're taking it in and out of whatever you're using it for, the more likely you are to lose the tile itself, which would just be, counterproductive. Those are probably the two most important things. Some side things would probably be like making sure it doesn't interfere with your electronics if it like puts out some kind of signal that could like interfere with like phone calls or with Wi-Fi or anything like that. Um, Also, the security of the device is important because if it's something that anybody can track, then someone who potentially would want to steal your whatever device can zero in on your device and find you wherever you are, which is kind of terrifying. And there's more and more hacking has become more and more accessible to people, so that would be something I'd be really worried about if I was using it for something more than just like my wallet. Um, Economically, I definitely think like what I said. If like companies use this to keep track of expensive equipment, that would like drastically improve the retention of their products, so that like less things would get stolen, basically. So they would literally like save money doing this. But I think this would also be a really big hit in, just everyday families. Like, I can definitely see this, like, a dad, if he's getting his kids, like, phones or something, he would also get them these little tracking devices to put on all the phones because they know that they're going to lose them because they're kids. So I guess family households would all, like, want them, especially households with, I guess, teenagers. Um, yeah.
Okay.
Um, I think the older people that either they only just have a cell phone and a wallet, and they don't have like a smartphone or anything, and they just kind of have those like two things that they're holding on to. They wouldn't be interested in this just because either they don't use their stuff enough that they like really miss it if it's lost, or they'd just be less likely to misplace it because they don't use it as often, and like they wouldn't see the benefit of having something that could track it because they just, I guess, figure that they wouldn't lose it in the first place because they just don't use it that much. I guess the things I already mentioned, like battery life and security, because if you're broadcasting a signal so that your device can be found anywhere, then it's likely it could be found by anyone, depending on the mechanisms you use. And battery life too. If something's putting out a signal constantly, that's probably going to be a huge drain on battery and something that has to be recharged pretty often. And that would be a boundary, especially if you're, I guess, embarking on a trip or something where you won't have access to the thing you need to charge it, like electricity or anything. So that would be unfortunate. But if you did anything that didn't require power, it would be something like I don't know, radioactive or something, and you need a lot of sophisticated equipment to find it. I would definitely view this as something that would be nice to have, just because for me personally, I trust myself with my valuables, uh, for the most part. But I would, depending on the price range, I would definitely consider getting one just because it's better safe than sorry, especially if it's lightweight and easy to keep up with. But yeah, I would view this more as a something that would be nice to have, like a cool gadget rather than a necessity. Yeah, I think most people are probably like me and think that they're like pretty good at keeping track of their stuff on their own. I mean, there's obviously a couple people that know that they lose things constantly, but I think a lot of people would like they would most people wouldn't view it as a necessity. It would just be something that would be nice to have. Um, Probably I think the most common like demographic that would think of it as a necessity would probably be like people that are getting like things for their kids, and they view it as a necessity to keep track of all these things that they're getting for their kids or for their grandparents or anything like that. Um, I think depending on the range of the product, like how far you are from it, that it would be an effective range, or if it just transmit to GPS. I just thought of it would be awesome if you could have that for your pets, kind of like a microchip, but maybe like you don't have to, put them through surgery to implant it. You can just like stick it on their collar, and you can like if you lose your pet, you can be able to track them with GPS, so you can find them more easily. Um, and that would go for pretty much anything. You could also like put it like on your kid's shoe, so if they get like kidnapped or something, you'd be able to track them. Uh, and I guess pretty much anything that you could possibly lose that you didn't want to lose, you could use that for it. I was thinking like if your car isn't like one of the new cars that has its own GPS that you could track, you could do that. Or like if the technology was sophisticated enough, I know like a lot of ecologists and biologists use things to track dolphins and stuff, or like any other organism that's like migratory that they have to keep track of. But some of these organisms are too small for the standard satellite uplinks. So if you had something that was smaller but also like that you could use effectively, then that would be a really big help to track some of the smaller stuff like baby sea turtles or anything like that. Um, no, I don't think I really have anything else that I haven't already said. I think it would be a good product, and I would definitely consider investing in it if it were to come on the market.